And I want to bring in a man who certainly knows this region well, McAllen Mayor Jim Darling. Mayor, I appreciate you coming down this morning. Clearly, relations with Mexico and the migrant issue is a big one for you. So let's go back. When President Trump presented the idea of the border wall, how did that sit with you in this community?
Well, I think, just the border wall itself, we have problems with that for landowner rights, for splitting parks in half and all those things. And I don't think it affected our relationship with Mexico until he said they're going to pay for it. And then we had a backlash, not only worried about what the wall is going to do to our communities, but resentment in Mexico affecting our visitors and tourism. And we're very strong on tourism, and that had a negative effect on our economy, of course.
So we need border security, clearly, and the wall wasn't a good idea. But here we are with this migrant situation. When I talk to people in the community, they're saying it's clearly an issue, but it's not a crisis. Do you view it as a crisis? Because when I look at detention centers and mothers being separated from their children, I'm saying, if it's not a crisis, why exactly are we doing this?
Well, in 2014, it became a crisis when President Obama talked about immigration reform. The cartel said, you better get over here, because if you're not in the country when it happens, you're not going to be able to get in. So we've been dealing with it since 2014. And if you really look at the crisis, to me, it's in Central America. And if, people, they think they're not going to come because separation, we have tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors who go through a traumatic bypass through Mexico with cartel influence and just terrible stories. If they're not going to stop for that, they're not going to stop for this. So I don't think this is going to be effective. I don't believe in it. I think it's ineffective and inhumane, but it's not going to affect the overall problem. They got to go in Washington, and Democrats and Republicans got to get together and do an immigration reform, because we've been talking about for 4 years in our area. We're going to continue to talk about it, because this is not going to stop anything.
So if they're fleeing for their lives and they're coming to the U.S., but now we're putting these children in detention centers and separating them from their mothers, and to your point, it's inhumane, it doesn't make sense. Who exactly does it serve? Because when I look at the detention centers and I read that DHS is spending tens of millions of dollars, I think, wow, if you drop tens of millions of dollars in McAllen and did something for the people here, that might have a better effect.
Well, we kind of turned the immigration and people at the border into immigration officers instead of Border Patrol and CBP people, and so that's affected their operations too. And so I always thought they should send social workers down to help people. They better know where they're going to go, when they're supposed to report for court, instead of having the law enforcement do it. So that's been a particular problem. But I think this is what they say, a stopgap to try to prevent people from coming. I'm going to tell you, if the journey doesn't prevent them, this is not going to prevent them. And they're going to find that out. I mean, unfortunately, we're going to have to run this until the president's staff figures out this is not stopping the flow. And, even when you talk about immigration reform, that's going to make that flow come even more.
One of the arguments to do this is that the president says these are criminals coming in, and we don't know that, but he also says that these migrants, they're stealing our jobs. They're right here in your backyard. No. Are they stealing jobs, and are they making your community worse?
You know what? We're a big shrimping area. The shrimping fleet was hurt because we didn't have enough people to work from Mexico in it. I mean,
so the immigration issue is you need more to work on your boats.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just I know it's a stopgap. It's not going to do anything, but probably increase the flow, because as the closer you get to immigration reform, people are going to come over to be in the country before it happens.
Then from here, where you're saying we need immigrants to fill jobs and these people aren't hurting your community, what is the solution, or what do you say when you look at these detention centers?
Take some of the money. We need to do foreign policy in Central America. The drug cartels have much more money than the governments down there. Drug cartels spend much more money than we do on border security, of getting people across. And so you need to realize that you can do these little things, and rhetoric doesn't help. What we need to do is effective foreign policy in Central America, spend some of that $750 million, restore the order of law. By the way, it's NAFTA going across there. Restore the order of law in Central America and help the governments do that, and build their economy, so give them the reason not to come here.
How concerned are you about the rhetoric between the United States and Mexico? When you talk about trade, that certainly affects people here in McAllen, because this is where it happens.
Well, we're not only tourists, we have friends, relatives, business relationships. Capital comes into our area, and Mexico is very important. The border, it's very important to Texas, and I think Texas has recognized that. And so, we're getting ready to do election in Mexico where that rhetoric's affecting who their president's going to be, and so you don't think that's important. Something wrong in there.
And what happens if Mexico ends up with their version of Trump? What are the relations going to be between I mean, right here, this is ground zero. It matters most to this community.
Well, there'll be a lot of tweeting going on. It's not healthy.
Not healthy. It's got to be a lot more than tweeting.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.